All right, this video's about the choices that you make. A lot of people are saying that they're not really sure where to start as far as becoming self-sufficient. And, there's just so much information for them out there. They don't know what to do. They want a roadmap. And, I tell them that life won't get less busy. It just won't. You're still going to have the same amount of hours in a day now as you will 20 years from now. It's a very real problem to be overwhelmed because of all that's happening with the economy today, with all the COVID mandates. And some states are far harder on people than in other states. Like South Dakota, they never instituted any mask requirements or anything like that, and their economy didn't take a hit, so people were less fearful there and had less problems overall than other places. And other places, they're trying to re-up for another year all the mandates and certain people not being allowed to work. There's some companies that are doing shifts now where everybody's working 8-hour shifts, so there's 3 8-hour shifts in a day. And, so each shift it's less manning per shift, but they still get the same amount of work done in each day because they have 3 shifts compared to 1 or even 2. And, it makes it hard on family life, and some schools opening up, some schools not, finding daycare. Some places, all daycares have to be shut down and are still shut down. And it's so single parents, what are they going to do with their kids? How are they going to make it ends meet? So I understand being overwhelmed and not knowing what to do. But the thing is, you have to make a choice. You can choose freedom, or you can choose just to be another cog in the wheel. Just do what everybody else does, do what you're told. By not making a choice to become self-sufficient and putting in the work, and it is a lot of work. Some of us, like I've been doing this since I was a kid, so I make it look easy. But it takes great effort to make something look effortless. It took a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort and a lot of mistakes. That's just how it is. You're going to make them. Don't be afraid to make them. But if you're not making the choice to step into that lifestyle, you, by not choosing, are allowing others to choose for you. And do you really think others have your family's best interest in mind? Probably not. You don't want to slack off on it. I know there's a lot to learn, but you got to start somewhere. If you don't know where to start, and I'm trying to create a roadmap, a series of videos. We already shot 4 this morning, and we're doing another 2 later this evening. Just taking people from nothing, have no clue what they're doing, all the way to being self-sufficient. And there's going to be a lot of videos. I guarantee you there's going to be 100 or 200 videos minimum just to get people feeling somewhat comfortable. And, when I was sitting there figuring out where to start, I literally... You guys got to realize that there are people out there, literally people out there, entire families out there, whose only concept of cooking a meal is pushing a button on a microwave. Literally, there's an entire generation that are now in their 20s who the only meal they know how to cook is follow the directions on the box, enter the time, and hit start. That's it. So it has to be catered towards those people. Not everybody's going to be at that low of a level. Some people have had jobs. Some people have worked their ass off, so they have a good, strong work ethic. Some people have done things throughout their life that gave them a lot of skills and knowledge in some areas. Like if all you did was when you're a teenager was sit next to your mom or dad or your grandmother um, and learn how to cook, you're way ahead of a lot of people from this newer generation. So, those videos are going to start super basic. But the thing is, you still got to choose. And if you don't know where to choose or what to choose, don't know where to start, and if those videos haven't come out yet, you can literally just go down to a library, any public library, and it's free to get that knowledge. And just grab a book that interests you. Doesn't matter what it is. And you can be marching along, adding to your knowledge. If you practice those skills or what's taught in those things, even better. I recommend, if you don't have a whole lot of knowledge in the certain areas, is sticking with science. So, anything you know how to do that involves science is great. Because of the simple fact that it makes it harder for somebody to give you something that is fraudulent, wrong, incorrect, or done to manipulate you. Like, you can call bullshit on it. Straight up. So I tell people, learn your basic math, because a lot of people, last time they done math was in high school, and that may have been 20 years ago. Refresh on your math, do your basic, geology, geography, do your animal science. You don't have to go super detailed, just get an entry-level book and read it. Astronomy, you can look at meteorology so you can understand the weather, what's happening. There's several good books on meteorology that I've read that have allowed me, when I've been in areas where didn't have cell phone reception to check weather updates and stuff like that. But I had the knowledge in my head, and I could look out and I'm like, oh wow, the weather is turning for the worst. It may be nice and sunny now, but because of A, B, C, and D, I can tell by this time tomorrow it's going to be 20, 30 degrees colder, possibly raining, and by tomorrow night, definitely going to be raining. So that gives me a heads up without having to use modern technology. So all your sciences, just getting an entry-level book is great. You can also get books on different knowledges and skills. Like, I'm at the library right now, and I went and I picked out just a couple books. Literally spent 2 minutes picking up a few books, right? And they can be things that you want to learn, things that you interest you, things that you have no clue about. Getting a variety of knowledge, choosing to expand your mind is going to help. It's going to give you're going to start developing your own roadmap. So, like this one right here, compact cabins. Okay, so it gives you 62 plans for camps, cottages, lake houses, and other getaways. It doesn't, I didn't read it. I just briefly skimmed through it. Good general layouts for cabins. So if you want to make a cabin, there you go. You got the plans. When you look 10 books to the right or left of that, all those are going to be in the same subject. And in some subjects, it's going to be several shelves to the left or right of it. So if I like this book and I go, hey, you know what? I want to go deeper. Bam. I know where to look. Just start reading one over, or 2 over, 3 over. Just browse through them. Maybe I like this one. Maybe I like that one. Maybe this one has what I need. Making a cabin with hand tools. There was a book right next to that one. Making a cabin with hand tools. I have hand tools. So if I read that book, I have the basic knowledge to make a cabin. Use one of these small cabin layouts, So I got the layout and I got the knowledge and skills because I've already done a lot of woodworking to be able to make an effective cabin. Like if you've never done woodworking, but you can find these some of the tools, you can still get a decent cabin together, you know. But if a cabin's not your thing after reading the book, oh well, it's still in your mind. Maybe it'll change later. Maybe you may have a friend that goes, you know what, I want to make a cabin, but I'm not sure where to start. And you go, you know what, I was down at this library, I read this book, start there. You know, so you're helping somebody else out. Here's another one, knitting mitts. Okay, knit and crochet, very important skills to have. It has different designs, fingerless ones, you know, a lot of information on knitting and crochet. Very important if you're trying to live a self-sufficient lifestyle, because if you get a sheep, you have wool, or you got a shaggy dog, a hairy dog, you know, there's dozens of different animals you can get animal hair from. You can also get it from plant material. Might as well learn how to start making things with it, right? You know, I had the pleasure of working with the Umpqua Spinners Guild, learning how to spin wool on a spinning wheel. It was fantastic. From there, I met a few people that, because several of those ladies, they had their own sheeps and they had a professional shearer come in, and I go, you know what? Hey, I want to spend a couple days with you. You know, I'll do whatever you need me to do. Let me watch, let me learn. He was more than happy, absolutely more than happy, you know, because all the grunt work, all the cleanup, all the stuff he didn't want to do, I was willing to do in exchange for him teaching me, you know. And so I can shear a sheep, I can process the wool, I can spin it in the yarn, and with this book, I can make gloves. With this one, there was well over 100 other books on different things: scarves, blankets, sweaters, socks, like everything you can possibly want next to that. So you start getting those basic skills. Now I can go from sheep to fully made clothing, like that. Or, you know, if I'm processing nettle or flax, which I've done in real life, hands-on before, you know. And there's a lot of groups that go out and do that, and they love teaching people. Absolutely love teaching people. These people, the Umpqua Spinners Guild, were very cool ladies, very knowledgeable ladies to work with. Another thing, you know, natural baskets. You know, dozens of different artsy designs, but useful designs on making baskets. Again, you know, you may have a willow tree, you may have bramble. You know, here in America, we call it blackberry. European countries usually call it bramble. We have all these supplies to make baskets. Why would a self-sufficient person not know how to make baskets? You can make them tiny, or you can make them large. There's old pictures of men making baskets down on dockyards to put a lot of product that, you know, this is in the 1920s. And these baskets, they were so big, they had to use ladders to climb in and out to get more material to weave into them. And they're very strong. Like, you can probably put a car in one of them. They're so big and so strong, and lift up the car in the basket. So baskets are very useful, plus they're nice gifts. You know, people love them. When you make a basket for somebody, they love them. You know, I've never had anybody who I've made a basket for hate it. Here's another one. Healing herbal teas, you know. They're just teas on how to improve your health, basically, you know. Plus, they're probably taste pretty good. You know, I like making different teas. I like trying different teas. I've been around the world and tried teas in probably a dozen different countries. Some of them, I have no clue what they were, but, you know, a lot of them tasted pretty good. And, you know, with this one, there is probably several hundred books to the right and left of it about different plants, growing them, which ones are medicinal, which ones were edible. Um, there's ones in other about plants in other countries, which are good, but if you're not going there, I'd say stay away from those until you've built up your knowledge in the area you're at. This one, I glanced through it. A lot of these are in this area. A lot of these plants that it talks about it's using are in this area. So, that's fantastic. Improve your health while at the same time you got another nutritious drink. It probably tastes great. Most of these probably taste great. That, like, plants are going to be your best friend. We get originally man got damn near everything from plants and animals. And we've lost a lot of that knowledge. Some people still know how to get things from animals, the meat and, the hide. Some people know how to process the hide. It's not really difficult, but using plants makes much more sense because there are thousands of plants out there for every one person. There's thousands more plants than animals out in the woods. So if you're going to be self-sufficient, you want to use everything. You don't want to just go pick this plant, pick the fruits or the nuts or the berries, whatever it is, off this plant and eat it and let the rest go to waste. A lot of herbal teas are made from the leaves. A lot of plants that we naturally eat, if you take the vines, the stems, you can process them into making a yarn, basically, kind of like you can with nettle or with flax and stuff like that, even hemp, because you can make clothes. So if on your journey to become self-sufficient, you're learning about plants, you'll never go wrong because you'll learn what's edible, what's medicinal, and then what's utilitarian. So you can use it. You can use it to make baskets. You can use it to make clothing. You can use that as insulation filler in like your dog house or your chicken coop, whatever. Who knows? Because there's so many different plants. Like, if you just look at grasses, there's over 3,000 species of grasses here in North America alone. That's a lot to learn, and that's just grass. So, think of all the shrubs, the trees, just everything. It's astronomical what you could learn. If you learn 100 plants in your area, there's probably another 10,000 more to learn. So you can never have too much information. And next to this book, there's hundreds of books on everything, including when you get far enough down, farming, growing a garden in your backyard, and some of them are specific. I saw a few that are specific to one type of plant, like, how to make your tomatoes blossom, and that's the whole book was a little bit thicker than this, and it was just about tomatoes. So there's a lot of information on just individual plants. So, just going and picking a book and starting from there, doesn't matter which book, just go and start. As long as it's not advanced book, like book 6 in a series, if you're a beginner. If there's a series, get book 1. If there's not, if it's like this, just grab the first one, start reading. Because these 4 books, to read them and to practice everything in them, that's over a month of work right there. Easily a month of work, So, making all these baskets designed, because this is 20 of them, to make them once is going to take you a month, more if you've never done it before. All of those knitting mitts and stuff like that to make each one, if you've never knitted before and it's your first time, that's a couple months worth of work. If you're an experienced knitter, that's still several weeks of work just to make one of each. So, good information, good places to start. Best hikes. There's like 6 or 7 different national parks that were there. I chose this one because this is one I've done a couple hikes in, and not too many. Some of the others I know them like the back of my hand. Like this is great. It tells you the areas, it gives you the difficulties, it tells you the distance, approximate hiking time, where to get maps, and it even gives you descriptions of the hike. This one, I picked it up because you can pair it with your plant book. So say you live near the Rocky Mountain National Park. I'm guessing that this part's in Colorado. Yeah. Yeah. And so you can get a field guide to the Rocky Mountain National Parks for plants. And so you can pair them. So as you're doing this hike, so you say you pick one of these hikes that's 9.6 miles out and back, so round trip. Hiking time about 7 hours. Difficulty moderate. Okay, say you want to do that one. It's Shadow Mountain Fire Lookout. So you get your field guide that goes along with it, so plants in this area. So as you're going on that 7-hour hike, you're looking for different plants, or you find a plant like, hey, which one's that? And you flip through your field guide, boom, that's what it is. Okay, now you know what it looks like in real life. You've seen it with your own eyes, you've seen it in the book, and you can read a little bit about it. Usually the field guides don't tell you what parts. It'll tell you if it's edible, but don't tell you how to process it to make it edible if it's not straight edible as is. It won't tell you if it's medicinal 9 times out of 10, or so all you're doing with those field guides is identifying it. So you're burning that image into your mind. So you're pairing those, and so you're getting exercise, you're having fun, and you're learning about plants in the area. So if that's near where you're at, wherever hiking book you get is where you're at, and you got the field guide, you can potentially go through and physically lay hands on every single plant in that book, as long as it's in season. So that's one of the things you can do to start building up your knowledge. It's time and reps. You're not going to remember them all, but when you come back to it, you're going to remember that plant. You're going to be like, hey, I know that plant. The name's on the tip of my tongue. It's, and you can pull out your field guide and find it faster. And eventually, you're going to have them all named. And once you have them all named, you're going to have another book that says, okay, this plant is edible. You can use the leaves for tea. You can use the roots for this. You can use the flowers for this, or the berries, or whatever. So now that you can positively identify it every single time you go out, and you're aware of lookalikes, because some plants have lookalikes that are very dangerous. But once you're aware of the lookalikes, some of them don't have lookalikes. But now you're starting to say, okay, I'm reading through my edible plant guide, and it's saying this plant is edible. You can use this part to make tea, use this part to do this part to do that. So next time you go out, pick one of those. Now you got it, and you can bring it home and use it according to the book. Now you know what it tastes like. You have hands-on experience processing it however you need. Things like mint, you can just pick off leaves from the plant and eat them. Other things you actually need to do processing with, like if you're using acorns, you got to process the tannic acid out of them. So each plant's a little bit different, and your daily, when you're going out and doing things, if you tying these things together, you're learning about your area, and on top of that, you're learning about the plants of your area. If you get a geology book, because a lot of these national parks have geology books that go with them, so you use this to plan out your hike, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, stuff like that. And you may bring your geology book with you one time, your plant book with you another time, depending on how difficult the hike is for you. If it's an easy hike, you'll be able to do multiple things at once if it's not too long. Like that 7-hour thing, if you go in the afternoon, you probably don't want to mess around too much, but if you go in the early morning, you can easily complete that hike and spend 3, 4, 5, 6 more hours out there playing with the plants, identifying the rock formations and different things like that. So different field guides like that, like the Falcon guides and like Peterson field guides are fantastic to pair together. And that's a great way to start, and so you're knocking out multiple different areas at once. And last but not least, I had to. How to tell if your cat is plotting to kill you. They're going to be trying to kill you. Cats are absolutely killers. They're like, if you look at the body structure and the behaviors of all cats around the world, they're killers. And this is more of a humorous book, But I figured, what the hell, might as well throw it in there, because you can't just be strict on the go. I have to get all this. You got to have some humor. You got to have some things to keep you entertained, keep you motivated, refresh your mind and energy levels. And, there is a lot of books on art out there. And this was in the art section. Not quite sure why, because it doesn't teach you about art. Maybe because it isn't all artwork. It's no actual photographs or anything like that. But, art is a great mental release. Like those people who are feeling overwhelmed and stressed out and worried, it's a way to calm you down mentally. You can't just read your self-help psychology books and not apply them. If you get an art book and start doing that, you stop worrying about other things. It's just naturally part of it. You do anything. You go for a run. You do martial arts. You go for a workout. You have a hobby, whatever it is, making something, doing something. Some people, their hobbies are reading. Those things de-stress you. Even watching your own, like your favorite TV show, even if you're rewatching it for the 10th time, that's been shown to reduce stress because you know what's coming up. By the end of the episode, you know how it ends. So for a lot of people, it brings them comfort. Those are things you can do to help your mental state. So every book in the library is important on one way or another. And if you want to start, just walk down through the library, grab a book, and start there. If that subject's not something that interests you, okay, after you're done reading it, put it back and move to a different section. But literally in less than 2 minutes with these 4 or 5 books, six books, you got months of work right there, months of knowledge to put to use, and a lot of useful skills because, baskets are always needed. Knitting and crocheting, a lot of people say, oh, that's not a manly thing. It doesn't matter if it's a manly thing. It actually used to be a primarily male job. Being the spinners and the processors of plants to make clothing used to be a male job back in the day, hundreds of years ago. But now it's regulated more towards women because, 100 years ago, stay-at-home moms, they literally, once they had everything they needed to do at the house done, they'd knit and crochet or process leather or animal hides into leather to make clothing because they know that their children, their husband, were going to need repairs some way, shape, or form. So that was always a job that they did. And so somehow it got regulated to a woman's only thing, but I think it's very important. I've taken classes at a college for knit and crochet. I've worked with the Umpqua Spinners Guild to learn to spin wool. And, it's fantastic knowledge. It's a lot of fun to learn. And the people there are great people, very, very, very knowledgeable and very helpful in everything you want to learn about the subject. So if you're not really sure where to start, the library is a great place to start. Those guilds, if you can find those different guilds, they call them guilds because they're trade crafts. You can make money off of it. A lot of these women, they'll spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yards of yarn and sell those. Because when you go down to the store, you usually get a synthetic cotton blend. It's very hard to find pure wool or pure this, pure that, pure nettle. So, that's what some of these women do to make extra money on the side. So that can be another way for you guys to bring extra income in while learning to be self-sufficient, and you don't want to wait, because if you look at the economy, the way the inflation's going, you want to start putting your money towards skills. You got to spend money. I know a lot of people like, hey, I want to save money, but saving money is the fastest way to lose money. Absolutely the fastest way to lose money. I don't care if you got $100,000 in the bank. If I had $200,000 in the bank, I'd be spending it on getting hands-on skills, hands-on knowledge. I'd be paying people to teach me something left and right every spare second I got, for the simple fact the value of the American dollar is going through the floor. Everybody says, oh, inflation's only at this. No, it's at least 15% every year. And if you look at it, so I was writing on this earlier. So let me just get this closer. So inflation, just another form of taxation. Once you start thinking about it and looking at it, you understand what I mean. But if you look at what's happened in the last year, used cars have went up 40%. Fuel, 40%. Your meat, fish, and eggs, another 12%. New cars, 12%. The utilities, over 10%. Overall food at the grocery store, 7.4%. Transportation, 5.6%. Housing is 4.4%. And that's going to go up. Because right now, the interest rates on loans, 3.5%. And a guy I was talking to literally just yesterday, and he's a realtor, and he does his business. They don't just sell homes, they also do home loans and stuff like that. He says by next year, the lowest interest rate you're going to get is either going to be 4.5 or 5%. So that's a huge increase. It makes it almost not worth it to buy a home later. And if you do the math, just basic math on this stuff, say you got, we'll go with, just because I said it earlier, $200,000. Say you got $200,000, right? Overall, I guarantee you, the value of the dollar has depreciated over 15%. Not just because of these individual things. This is part of it. The basic inflation does work towards it. These play another part of it. So 15% of 200,000 is 30,000. So January 1st of this year, if I had magically had $200,000 in the bank and I saved it and I did not spend it, by the end of the year, it's like having $30,000 less. Literally. So it'd be the equivalent of having only $170,000. You may think, well, I still got a lot of money, but do you realize what you could have done with that $30,000 during the course of this year if you would have put it to use? That's why savers are losers. you will lose that money. You know, it's not just inflation, it's the price of everything that's going up. And these numbers, you can go online and verify these numbers. But you look at the value of your savings account and think, would I want it to be 15% less? If not, then spend it on something useful. You need to. If you spend it on knowledge, if you spend it on skills, you can't go wrong, because those are going to pay dividends that you cannot put into monetary factors. You literally, if I teach you a skill, say you come to one of my workshops or you schedule your own private training, if you learn a skill and it ends up saving your life, how can you put a value on that? Every skill that I teach you, it helps you become more and more self-sufficient. Eventually, you'll come to the point to where if you're done with this rat race, if you're done with all this BS, if you're done with your dollar losing 15% minimum at every year, you can literally just say, you know what? I'm just going to live out here on my own and not have to worry about anything. Because you won't. You'll know what plants to eat. You'll know how to process things into your own clothing. You'll know what animals to hunt and fish. You know how to make your own home. Like, it's not hard. You can just say screw it and walk off from it completely if you want to. If you want to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you can put all your money towards paying off your house and have everything, have all your taxes and everything paid off for the next dozen years. If you want to do that and just have your home being self-sufficient, you can do that too, to where you don't need to make extra money. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. You don't need to go to that 9-to-5 job just to be paid the same thing you have been paid 10 years ago, why the price every year of everything goes up by 40% or more. The value of your dollar is going away. So you need to be spending it. And I hope you choose wisely and spend it on things that improve your self-reliance, improve your knowledge, improve your skill, improve the future for your children, because you need to start thinking about that. When people say they want to learn to become self-sufficient, I've never once heard somebody say, hey, I want to be self-sufficient just to take care of myself, screw everybody else. It's always because I have friends, I have family. I want that lifestyle to be able to provide for them just in case worst case scenario happens. You look throughout the world, and you'll see that economies do collapse fairly regularly. We experienced it partially in 2008, 2009. We experienced it majorly back in the Great Depression. Everybody says, well, our stock markets and everything dropped a total volume of dollar amounts more in 2008 than it did back in 1930s, and like that may be true, but we have more things in place, more safety nets to kind of brace things. We have bigger stockpiles of food, we have bigger stockpiles of materials and this and that, so we are able to keep kind of even, right? We didn't live in the same manner, but we kept on an even tone during that whole 2008, 2009 crash. Whereas back during the Great Depression, there was all sorts of problems that compounded on each other. Crops were drying up, dying, so there was a lot of rationing of food and supplies. People were fighting each other for work just to freaking get the minimum amount to buy something, to buy medicine for a kid that was sick, and diseases were very rampant down there. Well, back then, I should say, not down there. So, we have more of a safety buffer in place now, but it doesn't mean we still can't collapse. Like, look what the Soviet Union, USSR, freaking 1970s when it collapsed, right? If you were a millionaire when it collapsed, you barely had enough money to buy a loaf of bread. If you gave up every penny you had, you literally barely had the money to buy a loaf of bread. And that's horrible. So what people do? Well, the thing with Russia is that their supply chain from the bigger cities to the smaller cities wasn't that great. They didn't have the so-called safety nets. So people were self-sufficient. That's how they got by. And it didn't take them long before Russia, like the whole new government of Russia came into place. So it was the USSR, then it became Russia. Well, just Russia. So they have that self-sufficient safety net in place. And that's what I'm telling you should do. Instead of losing that $30,000, put that $30,000 to use. Learn new skills, get tools, get hands-on experience with those tools. You can go down to the local library and it won't cost you a penny to learn. But if you don't have a willow tree, bramble, or a way to go pick plants to make baskets, okay, you go down to the arts and crafts store and they have them. They have a lot of those supplies, and probably not everything you need or want, but it has enough to get you started. So it's free to get the knowledge, $5-10 to get the supplies, and now you're crafting. Now you're developing your skills. Same thing with going out on these hikes, learning these plants, learning the geology of the area, whatnot. Now you have money to spend on gas instead of letting it pretty much disappear. It just becomes worthless. Literally, value of the dollar, 200,000, you lose 30,000 in a year, period. You can have any financial accountant you want try to check those numbers, and they won't find anything wrong with those numbers. So if you're not spending it to become self-sufficient on things to become self-sufficient, no matter what it is, you're losing. You're just throwing it out the window. And it doesn't matter. Like your ideal of spending it may be putting it on investments where it's actually starting to make you money. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. That's better than leaving it in the safe or in the bank to where each year it becomes more and more worthless. So, think about that. Think about the numbers. You have to make a choice. You literally do. What are you going to choose? This should give you more motivation to choose than anything, because you're not getting paid more each year, but the value of your dollar is going down each year. The price of everything is going up each year. So you got to basically imagine that this year you're going to get paid more than next year. So just think about it. If you're getting paid 15% less every year, what are you going to do? You're going to want to try to become self-sufficient as soon as possible. And that's what this video is about, is making that choice. You have to make a choice. By not choosing, you are letting somebody else choose for you. And I guarantee you they will not have your best interest in mind. So make a choice. Pay attention to these numbers, on both sides. If you got nothing in savings, if you got no money, then I urge you to go down to the library and start building knowledge. Because even if an economic collapse happens, which all the leading experts are saying an economic collapse is coming, and it's going to be far worse than we've experienced in our lifetime, then having these knowledge gives you somewhere to start. Okay? You have something to start with. You may not have the physical experience doing it, but you're going to know where you're going. You're going to know what it looks like because you've seen the pictures, you've read and reread and worked things. And with making baskets, you don't have to get natural things. You can take an old newspaper and roll it up nice and tight, and treat it the same way. So you can do it without ever having to buy supplies if you've got no money. So make sure that when you're choosing right for not just you, but your family. You're thinking about the next generation and the generation after that. That's something we've lost as a society. My grandparents always thought about their grandchildren. And they always told me, like, what are you going to do when your grandchildren have to deal with this problem? Even when I was a teenager, they're trying to get me to think 2 generations ahead. That's very important, because toughening it out during a hard time is easy for you to do. But getting things set up for the next generation, for your children, is a lot harder. To get it set up for your grandchildren is even harder. And so if you're going to do something super hard like that, you need to start now. Because if you don't, then your children are going to have to try to figure out how to make ends meet for their children, your grandchildren. And you don't want that. You want to be the one putting in all the hard work. You're making the sacrifices so they don't have to. It doesn't mean they're not going to have to make any sacrifices. They will. That's life. They will. Trust me. Life will give them plenty. But you're taking on as much responsibility, as much ownership, and as much as those sacrifices as possible. So even if all you do is reduce the amount of sacrifices your kids and your grandkids have to make by 1, you've succeeded. And that's the mindset you need to be. So you need to be making these choices. All your choices need to be based on, does this help future generations or does this hurt future generations? What do you want? What do you want to do? Are you going to spend that money, or are you going to let it sit in there, in the bank account, in your safe, under your mattress, wherever you have it, and become worthless? And if you spend it, you can spend it on things that are good, that will help you out, that will improve your mind and your knowledge. If you don't know how to take care of something, spend that money to learn. Might as well. Otherwise, it's just going to become worthless. It's just going to be a piece of paper. And you got to realize the dollar, in the end, it's just an ideal. And so what they're saying, the government's saying by all this inflation and shit, is they're saying the ideal of money is going out the window. It's becoming worthless. You don't want that. So please make a choice. I don't care what it is. Hopefully it's towards becoming self-sufficient, becoming a better person for the next generation and the next and the next and next. And hopefully, like, once you start doing things, all this fear is going to go away. Because it's very hard to remain afraid of something if you're taking actions to correct it. It's next to impossible. So it's going to get rid of a lot of your fear. You may still feel overwhelmed at times because there's just so much changing and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you got to say, you know what? I did at least X, Y, and Z to make my life better, to make my kids' lives better, to make my grandkids' lives better. And be happy with that. Even if it's just one thing. If you're 1% better every single day, at the end of 100 days, you're 100% better. And 100 days isn't that long. You can do that 3 times over with some change in a year. So do you want to become better, or do you just want to sit there in fear? That's in the end, that is your choice. We can narrow everything down to, do you want a better life for your family, for yourself, or do you want to sit there in fear? That is your choice. That is literally the only choice you have to make. After that, everything else is just reaffirming the direction you want to go. So hopefully that helps. Get in touch with me. I'll be putting out a lot more videos, expanding on a lot more things. If you guys want hands-on learning, obviously, contact me through my Facebook page, and we'll go from there. We'll set things up. We'll try to make things easy on you and directed towards wherever you're at. Some people, like I said, may have a lot of knowledge in some areas, so they don't need that. Like, you may be an expert. You may be the one who wrote this book on basketry, so you're not going to need anything like that. You may have done thousands of different pieces of clothing in knit and crochet, so you may not need knowledge on that. But if there's something you need, if it's something we can provide, then I'm there for you. Until then, stay safe.